Hello. I want to talk about the next piece I'm going to do. This is the base of it, and this over here is going to be the main body of obviously a segmented bowl. So what I've done here, I've laminated the segments two different ways here, like the pie shapes with the laminations going this way, and here if you look at the side, see the laminations are going horizontally. And I expect that's going to be a rather interesting result, which we'll find out as we go. This surface, though, is going to be mounted to the base here. And I'll flatten this surface probably on my 6x48 belt sander. But what I wanted to show you here, you see the base here where I've laminated it with two on an angle, one straight, and I expect that's going to be an interesting result when I cut the bowl shape into this section for the bottom. As you can imagine, it's going to be like so. Yeah. So, but what I wanted to run this video for is, first, I centered, you can see that ring there, and I've shown this before where I center using my little pointer here in space, and then as I rotate on this rotating base, I can get that running true. Then once I know that the faceplate is running true, which I've drawn this on the lathe, so I know it's running true to the lathe, then whatever I center up here will be centered on the lathe. The main interest for that was to get this this line here running dead on center to the bowl, so that everything's balanced in the base. And once I cut the circle out on the bandsaw and I have the faceplate and waste block centered relative to the lathe, then when I center this onto here, I know when I go to the lathe it'll be dead on center. The way I flatten this, though, will not be on the belt sander. I'll do it on the lathe. That way there, I know that it's going to be perfectly flat when the bowl is finished. Nothing will be on an angle here. So with that, we can go to the lathe now, and I'll show you how I simply just make this flat on the lathe. One thing about that, when I go on the lathe and turn this flat, the main area that has to really be flat is just out here where the bowl is going to rest on it. If the center is a little bit dished in, that doesn't matter, because that's what's going to happen later anyway. Anyway, we'll discuss all that on the lathe, so let's go to that. Well, now that we have this on the lathe, we're ready to start. Turn the lathe on here, and I'm going to round it off, and also then, of course, flatten this out. And let's move along here. I like to turn fairly fast, as you can see. So. And take another pass here. Now, like I said, I can dip in a bit towards the center. As long as I have the area where the bowl's going to sit flat. This is I just use a straight edge method. I just look down there and I can tell I'm not quite there. Right about in this section here. I like a good tight and visible joint. Sometimes I'll use a little shear scraping method here just to shave it down. And okay, now I think I'll go ahead and make this completely round. And what what this is for is a good reference for when I center this back on the rotating table, which we'll go through later. And pretty much close enough. I don't have to really make it perfect, as long as I know that I can reference this with the pointer. Now we can go back to the bench, get this centered on the rotating table, and then we'll center the actual body of the bowl onto this. That way there, everything will be lined up. Okay, now that I'm set to go, I've got the piece of veneer, I've got the main body, and I've got this. Now what I've done first is I had this pointer just on a mag base, but there's no metal here, it's just a heavy base. And I put it on the outside rim and spin this. And I verified that the faceplate and the base, everything that was turned on the lathe, is now turning perfectly on center here. Now I'm ready to put this in place, and I'll glue it up here. Now as you do this, obviously one of the key points to keep in mind is you don't want to shift this on the rotating table. So you use light touches and you go slowly and make sure you don't inadvertently bump things and such as that. Now when I glue this, I like to put a little bit on each surface, and it just gives me assurance that everything's coated and the wood is soaking in and not going to pull glue away to such an extent that you don't get good contact, good adherence. Try not to put too much, of course, but I don't mind wasting glue if it means that the piece comes out right, because overkill on glue is something that's easy to correct, but if you don't get enough, that's not so easy to correct. In fact, once it's together, it's pretty much impossible. So put this in place here, and I just press down a little bit just to try and start giving it good advantage. Now you see I got a little crack there, but obviously when this is all together, that will be absolutely invisible. So this is, you see how that push out goes in towards that center hole, which is one of the advantages of having it there. Now I'm going to coat the top surface here of this piece of veneer. You can see how the rotating table kind of makes the glue spreading a bit easier, because you just kind of spin it around and just spread it all about. And I will now coat this piece with glue. And again, I don't have to really push the glue out to the outside edge here so much, because that's going to be hanging out in midair anyway. So I just get this kind of generously supplied. Now, this is where I like to have plenty of glue, not only because I want to make sure everything's going to stick, but at first, as you start positioning it, the glue acts like a little liquid bearing and allows you to start moving things about and positioning properly. So first, placement. And as you get familiar with this method, your first placement tends to start getting more and more accurate. Now, as you can see here, I'm putting my pointer out here, and I tend to like to pick a lamination point. Instead of the outside edge, I'll pick a lamination point, go 180 degrees, and I can see, okay, I want to move this. So this is where I hold my fingers on the faceplate and move it about half the distance. Then I'll move my pointer. And then I'll do the 180 again. And then I do 90. And you do try to do that halfway type judgment call on the differential. And I'll just go back and forth like this until, as I move it about, the variations in the very individual pieces of lamination seem good. I seem to have one piece that's a little bit of an outlier. So that's one of those instances where there's not much you can do about it. But as you play with it, and then as I really get close, I'll take a moment to push down on it a bit, and then I'll check again. Now I can still move it, but I'm starting to pull it in to where it's going to start sticking. That's what I want. Now you see I got to move that. So that's where this method allows you to keep moving back and forth. And as you go, and the glue's on there longer and longer, you'll feel it start to take hold. And that's fine now because it's looking really good. Now these lamination pieces are horizontal, so their placement won't matter anyway, but they're going to be pulled in along with the rest of this as you go. It's these little pie pieces that are of greatest importance and concern. So now I'm pushing down pretty hard, and I'm still going to have to check, because when you push down, typically you get a little shifting. And that's just the nature of this kind of work. Now, I'm about ready to put a weight on it. This is where it starts getting real, because now it's really going to want to start sticking. So when I put the weight on there, that's when I'll start my real serious checking. And once it's you're satisfied that it's pretty much good, that's where you just walk away. And you let time do its job to secure the thing in position. And I think we're just about there. So that's my method for getting something like this properly glued up. And now I can just walk away from it and leave it there probably overnight. And then we move on to the turning. Now some of these pieces that I do segmented like this, I will put a top ring on it. But this one is nice and busy, if you will. It's got a lot of segmentation in it. And I think I'm just going to leave it like this. When I turn that top lip and roll it over, you're going to see all these interesting laminations really pop and take on their shape with the curvatures. And this is going to be a very interesting bowl. So that's it for now. And the next thing is to turn it. That's it. Well, now that the bowl is fully glued up and set for a while, figured I'd give you a bird's eye view and start shaping this. I'm going to start on the outside. I think I want to have a rollover lip on this. I'll show you how that works later. First off, I'm just going to start making it round. That noise you hear is the glue over drip here that's hitting the tool rest. That'll disappear very quickly. Let's see here. Taking a bit of too big of a bite there, so I'll just back off. It should be getting fairly round here. You can see how some of the intersections are coming out. And all we do now is just keep wearing it down. This is oak and mahogany. Once we get a little deeper in there, there'll be some maple to see. I think I'll speed it up a bit. Now I'll start getting into that foot a little bit, I think. That's starting to look a little bit more like a bowl. You can see I'm starting to get into some of the other wood here. This, I believe, is snake wood, which when I put a finish on it should be pretty nice. So I'm just going to keep going like this, and when I get a little further along I might show you some more. Hope you like it. Well, as you can see, I started to define the undercut for the lip. I've rolled this edge over a little bit. I still got to come down with the diameter here. But the way I start defining this is with this tool here. And let's do that a little bit. So now I have to anticipate coming in here a bit. And of course, as I said, this diameter has to come down a bit more. We'll start working that. And when they have a bowl like this where I'm not going to be putting a cap ring on, you're going to see all the segments from the end, which is very nice. If you don't put a cap ring on, you can see all that on the rollover lip, and the rollover lip gives just more area for it to show. So as I go along, you see it's starting to develop a bit. So this whole diameter will come down much smaller and show more of the lamination layers on these segments, and I'll just keep going in that direction. I figured I'd stop and let you see what I've done so far. You can see how it's starting to take shape now. I've moved this surface in a bit and made the foot smaller, You see what I'm talking about with this rollover lip here, and we come around to the inside. I'll move the light around here, maybe give you a better lighting. So it's starting to take shape. Now I want to do the outside, so then I know how far I can pull the inside surface out so that I get the wall thickness I'm targeting. So now I'm going to put most of my efforts in the inside, hollowing this out. And but you can see how that this is looking here. It's really starting to not only take shape, but you can see the dramatic lamination layers really start to pop. And of course, when you put a finish on, it's even better. So I'm going to move along. Okay, we got the outside defined as I said, but now I want to do the inside. With the outside as a target, now I have a diameter to shoot for the inside, just to give the wall thickness that I want. So there's a lot of hollowing to do here. I'm going to use the tool I make, because with these flats that are in there from the segments, this will round it off quickly, and it also allow me to define the bottom curvature that will become the final piece, and then I can go with the finishing cuts later. So let's get this spinning. And this is like before, just a process of wearing it out, or wearing it down, I guess. You can hear it when it gets to those flats. But the nice thing about this tool is it's not as strongly affected as your standard bowl gouge would be in those. And I can cut, as you can see, in both directions here. And you get a lot of shavings. I am suspended over the tool rest a bit, but that's just the way it has to be at this point. I will move it in as I get more of this hollowed out, because for one thing, I'll have some more room for the cast iron tool rest. In fact, I think I can tuck it in a little bit right now. And just have to make sure I'm not rubbing. So then, there we go. And again, it's just difficult sometimes to maintain the discipline of not going too fast. I think I'll take a break here and sharpen this bit. So I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and let's continue. You can see it's a little more willing to cut now. And since I'm doing oak, I'm going to have to pause several times to sharpen this. Now, that glue really likes to bite. Once you get past that, though, you can start to sweep on the bottom. And like I said, this is particularly when you get into that glue, you have two things going against you, because until you get that glue cut away, you have not only the glue, but all those flats are still on the segments down there, so you gotta fight those. Now, here is where finding the center height is important. I think I have to adjust this. You can see some of those chips of glue in there. You can also see the segments are starting to look very nice. Now I've got 3/8 to 1/2 inch yet on wall thickness, but I still got to get that center nub. There we go. And I'm happy that the center of the line on the bottom, as you can see, is pretty much dead center. Just what I wanted. Now is when those chips are starting to accumulate on the side here. Yeah. Now it's looking pretty good. So, guess we'll just keep going like that. Well, I can tell this has already gotten dull. And you can tell that the chips are finer. I can tell by the fact that I actually have to put some force on the tool. So what I'm going to do is take the bit and flip it around, because I sharpen both ends. That's one of the advantages of this, so it won't be too long to be cutting again. And then here we go. You see, when I swept across the bottom and started coming up the side, you didn't hear those flats anymore. Let's see how it's looking. Oh yeah, no, there's still these. You can tell that I still got glue points there, so I still have more wall thickness to lose here. I'm just going to keep going like this, and when I get it just about done, I'll bring you back. Well, I have been working on a little bit. You see that I think all the glue points are out of the bottom there, and been working on the wall thickness and also finish. Now this bit has been sharpened. I'm just going to try and take a nice light sweeping cut, which actually gives very nice finish. And took most of the variations in the wall out, but I still have one here. I can see I got to wear that down a bit. So now I'll just be working on making sure that this has no real grooves or anything in it. The wall thickness is still fairly beefy, so but I might leave it like that because I like where the wall comes up on these segments here. If I make it thinner, that'll move this back, and I like this sort of a design on the top. So I think we're going to leave it there. I'm just going to smooth it out and then sand it. And this bowl is just about going to be ready to put finish on, remove from the faceplate. And when I turn the foot, I think I might bring it back to show you how I put this in the grippers and finish the bottom. Well, I've made progress. As you can see, it's just about finished. I've sanded it down to about 400 grit, which is plenty. And I'm liking the shape and the design. So now what's going to happen is I'm going to cut this off the faceplate. And then I'm going to put a coat of finish on the inside and the top lip to protect it, because that's where I'm going to grab it next to turn the foot. And then I'll bring you back and we'll turn the foot. Well, I've gone ahead and put some finish on it, mostly just to protect the surface here. I didn't really spray any finish on the outside yet. And that protected it while holding it for the next steps. And then I cut it off the faceplate. You can see I did it on my bandsaw. And I always hold it with a vise or something. Never try to hold the faceplate by hand and just guide it through, because if the blade catches it all, it's going to try to rotate it and pull out of your hand, and it'll end badly. So now, ready to mount it in the cold jaws, and I've got them set already. I can put it down in here. I've already checked to see that the lip is going to clear the flange of the gripper. If that was not the case, then I have these spacers that I make that will fit in here like so. They just engage that hole, and there's 4 of them. Of course, you put them on all 4 jaws, and that'll hold it up, and you still have enough room to grip it. But as it sits now, I can go ahead and tighten this up, and I usually do it on the bench here, and then I'm ready to go to the lathe, and I'll do the final tightening on the lathe. So let me get you set up on there, and we're going to turn a nice foot on this thing. Well, I'm ready to go. So first step, of course, will be just to flatten it, and then I'll turn the sort of a recess into it and put my concentric lines that I like to sign in, and then it'll be ready for sanding. So one thing I wanted to show you is that there's just about 0 run out. So that means I'm holding it right nicely on center. I think I'm about where I want to be. Like to check to make sure I got all the cut lines out, which I do. And one piece of maple here is a bit curly. So that's going to give me a little bit of tear out, but I think part of that is my tool is dull a little bit. Doesn't feel especially dull, but I think I'm going to go sharpen it, and I'll be right back. Okay, let's take another pass at this now. I'll spin it up a bit faster. That tends to give a nicer surface too. See how that looks. Yeah, a bit better. Now, I think that's far enough along where I just want to start making my recess, and that's where I'm going to go back to my standard tool here and drop this tool rest back a little bit and down a little bit. I'm going to start working that recess in now. Actually, I went down too far. I like to really be careful when I'm coming on the center of bottom of a bowl like this. You don't want to have a mishap. I don't like to take too big of hogging cuts here. That's when you will get a rougher finish and tear out and such, which creates more work. It's just better to take your time and wear it down nice and slow. Now for the final cut, I'm going to see if I can turn this tool around, turn the bit around in the tool if it's a sharper, because I can tell this has got a little bit of dull from the last time I used it. And yeah, I think I got a good edge on this end. So, get it back in here. So we can get moving here. And if you do turning, you know this is part of the nature of things. At times you have to pause and make sure the tool has the edge on it that you need. You can't compensate with extra pressure when you're working wood. Make this radius a little tighter. I think that's going to be about right. Yeah, that looks nice. A little bit of sanding there and that'll be good, but I think now is when I'm also going to put that little signature detail in the bottom. And since I have a smaller tool, I have to raise the tool rest up just a little bit. It would still work, but it's better to have it right. Okay, now it's a little bit of tedium of sanding, but it shouldn't take too long because that's not a bad surface to begin with. And this bowl will be done. That's all. See you next time.